is the owner of the Boardroom Skate Park, which recently opened in Cornelius.
Thank you for coming on the show, Art.
Thank you for inviting me.
So how did you come to open up a skateboard park?
It's a long story. My son Alex, that's now 10 years old, he became addicted to the sport. And it is a sport. It's not just a little something that kids do on the sidewalk and in places they're not welcome. But he became very enamored with the sport, and I followed him around to several different places, which there are really not a lot of places for the children to skate or young adults. And I'm a parent who stays there with my child. I don't just drop them off and leave them. I stood there and watched them in many different places that I took them to, and was very surprised and disillusioned with the facilities that were available for people who skated. And started researching into it a little bit, and kind of on the surface, and ran into a couple who have a store, a skate shop, and previously to that I'd already spoken to another fellow as well that he had the skate shop, and kind of had an idea of opening up a facility. So the idea was already planted in my head. So one day we started talking, a couple in Cornelius, and her name is Jenny Soul, and she's now the manager of the park, and we were talking about the lack of facilities for skaters. And I said, it's interesting you say that, because I'm encountering the same problem. And she said, you know, it would be nice if somebody really got behind the sport and put something together real nice and you know, monitored and watched carefully, not just put out there and let the children do what they want, because it's not good in any sport, regardless of if it's skating, baseball, or soccer. You've got to regulate the activity of the participants. So from that it evolved a conversation with the town of Cornelius, and the reason why Cornelius is because I have some property that I own there at Shops on the Green Shopping Center. And the Parks and Recs department in Cornelius were very receptive. They liked the idea, which was a welcome surprise, because typically, you know, it's kind of on the back burner. Skateboarding is something that you know, that they don't look at as a forefront. They look at, you know, baseball fields, soccer fields, and all that good stuff. But this sport
Nobody ever says, let's make a skate park.
No, it's the last thing. In fact, we don't want those skaters around here, which is another story we'll talk about here. But so we started researching it, and the Paul Herbert, the Parks and Rec director for Cornelius, was very receptive to the idea. We researched it, and I said, you know what, I think this is something we want to get behind. And we started putting together a business plan and started checking into the sport and say, you know, this is something that might be a business opportunity, yet it may not be, but I'm willing to take the risk. And the town, again, did not have it in their fiscal budget, and the idea came up, well, how about an interim park or something of a smaller scale that we had proposed? And I said, well, you know, the interesting is I've got a piece of property where the current tenant will be vacating in 60 days. I may be willing to put it there, which was a big commitment for me, because it's a shopping plaza that has tenants already in place, and this is a sport or a use that potentially could be a conflict, but in my mind I didn't think so. But convincing everybody else was a different story, but they're all there now. But that's how we got there. So we ended up putting it in as Shops on the Green. The town has supported it all the way through with the Parks and Recs curriculum.
How long a process was this from the time you started thinking about making the skate park to?
Probably about 90 days until we actually broke ground. We actually found somebody in California from the West Coast. His name was Kelly Saad from Pacific Ramps, who builds a lot of the trick ramps for Tony Hawk. So I wanted to get somebody who knew what they were doing and also had a little bit of credibility, because, you know, you want to market it properly as well. And convinced him to come here and spend about 7 weeks here in the Cornelius area and live in the area, and built the park from scratch, designed it and built it. And so yeah, it was a 90-day process until we broke ground.
That's incredibly fast.
Yeah, that is fast.
Yeah, what helped it along was the fact that I owned the property, and I was willing to make the move and make it happen. If I would have taken it to, you know, the town of Cornelius and through the process, it would have taken quite longer. But I'm not going to say that they would have done it. It would have taken longer for them to come to the plate.
You talked a little bit about how people maybe have some misperceptions about what it means to bring in a skateboard park or skateboarders, and can you talk about that? And were people in the shopping area really open to the idea at first, or?
Well, I'm not going to say they didn't have a choice, but they didn't, because I was going to do it regardless. For a simple reason is that I would never do anything to hurt my tenants. I would never do that. I would be, you know, hurting myself in the process. So I had to do something and then have them accept it as the process evolved. But if I went and asked them, they probably would have said no. So I didn't feel that I needed to do that. I needed to put it in place and let them see what the results of the action was. And they're all very pleased now.
Which is interesting, because when I went to go meet you for the first time, we were standing outside talking, and a mother and her daughter had just dropped off the son and headed straight over to the pizza place right there to go get lunch.
Right.
Yeah,
So it's bringing business into the shopping center.
Prosciutto's Pizza was one of them who had a concern. Well, he doesn't
I'm
express that
concerned
concern
now.
anymore.
Right. You gotta eat.
Right, and that's, and you know, so the big misperception of skateboarders or the sport in general is it's something that that is practiced by kids that are not good kids, young adults, children, and that's so wrong. And I was a victim of that misperception as well. Having owned a plaza and seeing these kids skate on my property, you know, I wasn't pleased, because what they skate is called street skating, which is all that's available to them. Handrails, stairs, and you know, 7 or 8 stairs is candy to them. They want to jump it. And the reason why is because nobody else offered them anything else to skate. And the sport evolved from, you know, back in California when there was a drought in the 70s and they were skating inside pools. And that's how the sport evolved. Well, we don't have that anymore. So it evolved to street skating, which is what they do today, which is all this plaza skating that you see. So you see these children skating in areas that they're really not supposed to, because it's private property, but yet nobody gives them anywhere to skate.
But they don't have anywhere else to go.
Right.
So you can't skate, but we give you nowhere to skate. And by the way, you can skate on the street and try to dodge cars and trucks.
Right.
You can't skate on the street, but you can't skate on the sidewalk, or you can't skate anywhere else. So it's, and plus the apparel that these kids wear. This is apparel they wear because this is what the sport dictates. You know, I equate it to people who ride Harleys or motorcycles in general, particularly Harleys. And you look at them on a weekend and see what they dress like. This is a banker, a doctor, or somebody else in a professional industry who has to dress a certain way in that sport because that's what it dictates. You don't see them with button-downs and khakis and penny loafers driving a Harley Davidson. So these kids wear this apparel because that's the way the sport dictates it. And these are very good kids. There's some that are not so good, but you know what? There's good kids that I played in baseball and basketball that weren't so good kids either, you know? So there's kids that cross over.
It's a more mainstream sport now. I mean, my son skateboards. I went in and there's a little observation deck inside that you can go and you can watch the kids skate. It's just your typical kid skateboarding, you know, and those ramps are huge. They're getting some good exercise. So I'm just happy seeing somebody out there moving instead of, you know, behind the video games and not out skating alongside cars.
Right.
Exactly. You know? It is a sport and it is an activity, and it's a great exercise. I challenge anybody to try it, and you can see how wear a helmet, because we require helmets, but it is you know, it is a sport. It's not a nuisance that a lot of people thought it was. It is a legitimate sport. It's an extreme sport, and it's a very popular sport, and children don't have anywhere to practice it. So I decided to give them a facility to practice it in.